Welcome to another edition of Pittsburgh Sportsline. This is our live TV show for 4 years. We've been live at 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock each week. Thanks for watching. I'm actually on a little mission here. Before I introduce myself, we got to at least talk about our sponsor, Olive Oil's Pizzeria. We've all had pizza, hoagies. I'm chewing on this last bit of hoagie. Thank you. Wonderful. Frank, you got quite the business. Thanks to Jake, not from State Farm, and Zach, 412-831-1900. Call them up and make sure you order some pizzas. I have a fundraiser I wanted to put out there. I met this young gentleman that's doing a lot of great things out in the community. Smokin' Jim Frazier, they got an event this Saturday night. They're actually doing, it's called Arts Greenhouse, is a hip-hop based arts and culture program for Smokin' Jim Frazier and the teens that he hangs around with. Does it say that? Yeah, I get it. Mine's a little different than their copy. I told Paul Crocker, he's a young man, very energetic, said he needs some help to get the word out. He ran into the talking machine Saturday night, and right away we're best friends.
All right, my man.
So I told him I would do this. Good luck to you. He's supposed to watch us on Verizon 32 tonight. I don't know if he did, but when he sees the replays, he'll know Al Levine, the talking machine, kept his word. And anytime I can help somebody doing some good things in the community, I will do that. So good luck to you, Paul, and all that you're doing with that hip-hop community there. Good luck. I'm Al Levine, the talking machine. We got Chip, the Prophet Hayner, Smokin' Jim Frazier, and we're going to talk some sports. It's pretty cold out there. I don't have my short sleeve polo on like Smokin' Jim does, but he doesn't feel hot or cold. Just put on some long sleeve underwear. So I went a little bulkier with a couple layers, so I'm nice and warm. Anytime that temperature's under about 10 degrees with wind chill factor, Smokin' Jim, I got to dress a little warm. Although,
green tea.
Well, the green tea froze today.
The block of green tea.
This is not sports related, but it's a health related thing. I drink green tea every day, and I put up a couple when the weather was warm in December.
Nice.
Then I'm getting these private messages, and even online on Facebook, where's your green tea? I go, I drink it every day. So I've been putting it on my deck. Today, early in the morning, I went out there, about 30 seconds, clicked it. It was still warm when I came back in, because I was out about a minute at the most. Later in the day, I put a cup out just to see what would happen. 2 hours, and it was like solid block. So I turned it sideways, took the shot of it. People were coming up with stuff. I call it the green tea popsicle. So that's what we'll have available.
Put a
the
stick
talking
in it,
machine. Yeah.
You're gonna lick it.
And to tell you, because I knew you might wonder, there's still a little, like a 50-cent piece of ice in my cup. I just let it melt just to see what would happen.
Wow.
And that's, you're talking about 6 hours later?
You're talking iced tea.
Yeah, it is now iced tea.
First time 50 Cent was in your house.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't see him, though, but he was melting like the Wicked Witch of the West. And we will talk sports. We have a lot to talk about. And we start out with what's on your mind. And I'm going to go right to our NFL scout, Steelers scout, model scout, boxing scout, scout of you name it. Smokin' Jim Frazier, what's on your mind?
Thanks, Al Levine, the talking machine. And if you want the green, you got to see Levine. That was my Jeff Janis catch. Pass it on back. I see we got a clock on the wall, so I'm on a timer, so I'll be real quick.
No, you don't have to be. The timer's for me. Give the folks some great information because they want to hear what you have to say. And there's such a large amount of people that want to know how many people are going to get awards today.
All right.
And how many spotlights they have.
My man.
They want to know.
Well, the Pittsburgh Sportsline Player of the Week is also the Team of the Week. And it has to go to none other than the Alderdice Dragons. And they beat Central Catholic Saturday night by 44 points. The Twins, James and Tim Jackson, both over 20 points. And by the way, I was at a basketball game on
With
Friday night.
With who?
Hi, Angel Shafino.
Oh, what a guest.
And all the Alder Dice starting five come over and showed me some love. I was surprised. They was in the house. They played earlier that day in the City League. You play afternoon games.
Yeah.
For some reason, they
I'm
don't want you
familiar.
to play at night. And I'm sitting there in the third row, and I see some guys with their hands out tapping me on the shoulder, and it was the Alder Dice starting five. Even Pew was in the house. So thanks for showing me the love, Alder Dice. Good luck the rest of the season, and that's the Pittsburgh Sports Line team and players of the week.
You saved me the one question I wanted to ask. Who were you with? And it's funny how you're friends with the head coach, Buddy, our man of Taylor Alderdice. You've told these kids are the greatest the last couple years. Now they're on Pittsburgh Sports Line, your show, so now they know who you are.
Yeah,
You've been announcing their games.
ain't that something?
Unbelievable. I'm just proud of
That
you.
just
Smoking
shows you
Jim.
there's hope for today's youth.
Yeah, that's it.
And
That's
Smoking
it.
Jim. I mean,
I
maybe
never-
he'll introduce us to
I
a
never-
coach
I
a
never-
year early.
I question my friend Jim all the time, but I never doubt him.
That was good.
I'm glad
That
I
was good,
swallowed
too.
before you gave that bomb out. Thanks, Smoking Jim. That was one of your shortest
Thank you, sir.
openings. That's why I'm butting in. Well, I do that all the time, but I'm doing a little extra. So, thank you, Smoking Jim. Very informative, and it was all facts. You're on a record this year for New Year's, on a record streak.
Yeah.
Factual. I appreciate it. All right, Chip, enough of the nonsense. What's on your mind, Chip Hayner?
To get started, and I was like, Jim, my friend Jim brought up the Taylor Alderdice basketball team, and Jim and I were having a conversation about them a couple of weeks ago, and they are right now, I think, the top-ranked Quad A team in the state.
Yes, they are.
And
Number
I think
one.
they're going to give the boys from Philly a run for their money this year, and I think there might be a state title in their near future. Now, that brings me to the other thing. Okay, you look at the teams that are ranked in the WPIAL, and you go to the Quad A, and you don't see Alderdice's team ranked in the Quad A, but you go down to the City League, and of course they're ranked number one in the City League.
Right.
Well, if they're ranked number one in Quad A in the state, why wouldn't they be ranked number one in Quad A in the
They've been
WPIAL?
fighting for
I'm
years.
just saying, I know they don't play in the WPIAL, but let's give the boys their recognition because they could be doing something historic this year. But you asked me what's on my mind.
Yes.
And read an article in the Post-Gazette today, and it kind of got me a little fired up. And I know this is a real sensitive subject for a lot of people, because the movie Concussion came out in
Yes.
December, and it's about the severity of concussions and subconcussive hits and the accumulation of them and the brain damage that happens to these players and all and this and that. And now, Anton Randall played for the Steelers, played for the Redskins, came back, finished his career at the Steelers. And now at 36 years old, he's at a point where he says that he has difficulty walking down steps like a normal person. He has to turn sideways and take his time to get down the steps. He's got memory loss, I guess you could say, the early signs of dementia or whatever you might want to call
Don't
it.
go to him to ask about that.
Well, no, but here's the thing that and I understand, the work on concussions and how they affect the human beings and how they affect you later on. It's an ongoing process, and it is a serious business. But one of the things that I get tired of hearing from these athletes that they've played professional football and they paid a king's ransom. They got paid very, very well, and they're now trying to blame the NFL and the NFL's doctors on the fact that nobody told them that repeated blows to the head are going to adversely affect you later on in life. And these are all supposed to be college-educated guys. And I'm sorry, I don't think that argument holds water. These guys know what they're getting into. They're paid very well for it. And if they didn't want to do it, they had a choice not to. And then after the fact, while they've got their riches and they can't count them anymore, they want to point the finger at somebody else as being their fault that they've got brain damage, not their own. I understand the severity of head injuries and the research that needs to go into it, but stop blaming somebody else. That's what my point is. You have to accept responsibility for your actions, and that's all I'm going to say about it.
Very good, Chip. No comment either. Not that I don't agree almost 100% with you, but that's
You know,
another story.
I mean, I'm not trying to minimize the effects on people's brains and how it is, but everybody makes choices.
Well, I'll digress a little bit. Over a year or so ago, I said if I were commissioner, I would solve that problem and the lawsuits. You would sign a disclaimer. Smoking Jim Frazier, everybody's a piece of meat. Will you sign this piece of paper that you accept all responsibility for head injuries and other traumatic injuries because of the risk? A 300-pound guy that can run a 4.3 and a 190-pound guy that can run a 4.3, that creates a lot of force. Mm-hmm. And then you get whiplash. Everybody knows how whiplash is because they've known somebody been in a car accident, let alone whiplash every day on a football field. So, I mean, these are things that wasn't at the top of my mind, but when you hear these things popping up, well, why did he sign a contract for quadruple what he had in Pittsburgh when he sees players and hears these things then? It wasn't that long ago that a lot of this was going on about concussions and safety in the sport. And he is college educated. He is a smart guy. I met him, very intelligent guy. I talked to him at a fundraiser at the Post-Gazette. Oh, yeah. And I don't ask for autographs. They gave me one of his autographed photos.
Wow.
So that he was smart enough to know all that stuff then. So I feel bad for him. I'll pray for him. And maybe with research and stem cell research, they're actually injecting that into people, not just Peyton Manning's neck. Maybe they'll take care of other injuries. So they're doing great research with that. What's on my mind is I'm thankful we had a team that won one playoff game, the Steelers. We'll talk more about that later. I mean, that was great for them to do that. Could they have won the game? They were a fumble away, and I don't blame Toussaint for it. I mean, the guy made a nice hit, so he was carrying the ball a little loose. He thought he had another 15 yards to go if Bay would have tackled somebody. You know, when you're on offense, you can hold and tackle a little bit and block, get in the way. We've seen that. But he didn't do that, and they knocked the ball away. Poor guy, that'll build character. If he's truly like Tomlin's thugs, because he likes thugs, then he'll just fade away because they have no self-esteem. They just have that group thing, we'll beat you up, but that happens. Other than that, it was a great game. For them doubting about Ben's toughness, when you're 6'5", 270 pounds, you're almost the biggest guy on the field. Now, sure, they shot him up. He said he would take any pain medicine that they had. Guess what he did? He took every pain medicine that they had. Do other athletes do that? Sure. You think he's worried about anything? He got married because of the Steelers and Rooney. They kept him around. He had 2 kids. He got a wife. These are all known facts. All the other stuff is speculation on my part. He's still the same guy he always was. So I give him credit as one of the best athletes, one of the best quarterbacks ever out there, because his line improved this year. But they still weren't that good on the outside where they were coming in on him. Luckily, he can take a couple hits. Guys are hanging on him. Look at how now they go after his arm. They don't want to just hit his body. They'll hit his arm because they figured out those tree stumps are hurting me, and when I go to hit him in the chest, I'm falling back. So these are some of the things. I enjoy the sport, as you know, but I don't live through the Steelers. I still don't play for them. I didn't get 6 Super Bowls, but I am a fan. I'm still a fan, and I'm happy that they went better than 8-8 because they were great doing what they did. Go Steelers. Glad you enjoyed that. But it was on my mind, because I watch all this. You're going around town, and the schizophrenic Steeler fans, I didn't want to say it. They're all, get rid of everybody.
Just to wrap that up, and if Ben Roethlisberger isn't the toughest quarterback in the NFL, tell me who is.
Yeah. Well, the other thing, people forget that he can't really run because he got hurt severely, and sure, he gained weight. So if he's 280, I mean, so what? He can throw the ball. I mean, he threw a 50, 60 yard first play, over 50 yards. So we'll let that go. We got one of our...
Maybe that second $100 million contract, maybe he'd get an endorsement deal from Slim Fast.
No, when he retires. Then Dan Marino and all the coaches,
with
Coach
Marie
Shula.
Osmond. With Marie Osmond.
And all them.
And Oprah.
Yeah. Well, we will see coming attractions, but he's still got a few more good years in him, hopefully. Hopefully that arm isn't shredded. I mean, when you have ligament damage, I'm not laughing about that. I had bursitis and tendonitis in my shoulder, and they gave me needles like this, and they go, this is going to hurt a little bit. And it burns, and they put that in. 3 cortisone shots, my shoulder's been great.
Wow.
So,
Really?
yeah, you got to get out there in the real world. Not that you ever took a shot. So they probably gave it right in your back, said, you'll be numb a little bit. So what if you can't think? Will you run forward?
Jim never saw the shot because once he saw the needle, he fainted.
Yeah, see, I didn't faint over the needle. Smoking Jim's there. Just don't show me what you're giving me. They go, can we put that in that baby back of yours? All right, we better go to 2 of my favorite segments on Pittsburgh Sports Line. Fiction and Fact from Smoking Jim's Almanac.
Thanks, Al Levine, the talking machine, and I tell you what, it's going to be rather quick because it's
What's all this quickness?
It's going to be a heart wrenching segment of.
Just tell me how far back you're going,
Well,
because I look forward to that.
we gotta realize that I've had season tickets to the Steelers since I was 4 and just gave them up this past season.
Time out.
So-
The disclaimer is
1986.
we have to ask what year that is, and you won't answer that.
That's true. But
Mario Tempest, I keep trying.
Okay, look here. Well, maybe we can narrow it down. Was it before or after the Immaculate Reception?
Before.
So, and the Pittsburgh Steelers have won 6 Super Bowls,
Correct.
which means there was many other seasons that ended in disappointment for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And this season ended in disappointment. And just a couple of things. Number one, I think the most disappointing loss the Steelers ever had on their coaching staff was when they fired Bruce Arians, the greatest coach since Bill Walsh. And probably the most heartbreaking loss in Pittsburgh Steelers history was probably the 1994 loss to the San Diego Chargers.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
But the loss that I compare, but the Steelers were favored to beat San
You were only
Diego.
16 then, right?
I heard about that game, yeah. And the loss that I compare this one to the most against Denver, Denver was probably a slight favorite to win the football game, was in 1989. I call it the Merrill Hodge year. Merrill Hodge, the Pittsburgh Steelers got hot down the stretch, beat the Houston Oilers. Merrill Hodge ran for about 120 yards.
Yep.
The next week, with quarterback Bubby Brister, the Pittsburgh Steelers went to a heavily favored Denver Bronco team, played their hearts out, probably should have won the football game. Merrill Hodge went over 100 yards again. The team rallied around Bubby. The team rallied around Merrill Hodge in the running game. Even Dwight Stone stepped out of bounds at the 7 when there was no one around him.
I remember that. That's when I first thought all sports was fixed.
Yeah, there you go. But after the season, the Pittsburgh Steelers probably made a mistake. They got rid of offensive coordinator Tom Moore and brought in an innovator by the name of Joe Walton. And I think the Chuck Noll underestimated the overall IQ of his football team. They just couldn't learn the Joe Walton offense. And I think things might have been a little bit different in Pittsburgh history had the Steelers stuck with Tom Moore, who's the assistant head coach under Bruce Arians at the Arizona Cardinals, and they'll probably win another Super Bowl championship. And that's Fiction and Fact from Smoking Jim's Almanac. Go Merrill Hodge!
And on another note, Tom Moore is also responsible for the development of Peyton Manning.
Yeah.
Wasn't he in Indianapolis
Well,
for all those years?
Yep. Tom Moore was there.
You know,
And,
and
so
well, yeah,
was-
you know, you
so was
question
Bruce
the IQ
Arians.
of brain surgeons like Bubby Brister, Tim Worley, Eric Green. These are all Mensa candidates, right?
Yeah, they graduated. 6th grade, that was it. They stopped. Thanks, Smoking Jim.
Yeah, well,
You're on a strong streak in 2016. I can't even question the truthfulness of this. Just can't figure out the age. But you danced around that pretty well. I'm still trying to get it out of you.
I got rhythm.
I don't know. I don't know about that. Okay.
Devin
You
missed
got the
that one.
music in you, huh?
Let it come out once in a while. All right, Chip, we got to go to Chip's
Chip's
trivia time.
Well, first off, what I'd like to do is I missed last week, and it was the day after our last show that I was on where the Baseball Hall of Fame announced the
2.
Enshrinees for 2016.
Boo.
A much well-deserved hand clap goes out to Ken Griffey Jr. Ken Griffey Jr. has set the record for the highest percentage of the vote of anybody in baseball history. He surpassed Tom Terrific Seaver's record of 98%, where he garnered 99% of the vote, but there had to be just 2 people that felt the need to not vote for him. I would love to hear the explanation as to why. And, you know, this year with the Baseball Hall of Fame, they had 100 less voters because what they did was they weeded out some of the people that still had votes for the Hall of Fame that hadn't written about baseball in the last 10 years. So that knocked 100 voters off of the
Smoking
thing,
Jim, look out.
which happened to help only marginally people like Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens, who went up from 37% of the vote last year to 44% of the vote this year. They need to get 75% of the vote to get accepted into the Hall of Fame, and I don't think that will happen anytime soon.
Not in your lifetime, Smoking
But
Jim.
being that Ken Griffey Jr. was elected to the Hall of Fame in his first year of eligibility, it made me think of some other athletes that were also elected in their first year of eligibility. First and foremost, with the exception of Roberto Clemente, who because of the way that he passed, they waived the 5-year rule, and he was admitted into the Hall of Fame immediately. 2 Pittsburgh Pirates made it on a first ballot. One of them was Honus Wagner. The other was Pops, Willie Stargell. So they, they're 2 deserving foes. But some of the other players who made it in the first year of eligibility, and I have to go right to the first one that's right here. Hammer and Hank Aaron start right at the top, and Jim knows how about the love I have for Hank Aaron.
Yeah.
I believe the greatest power hitter in the history of baseball.
Second.
Ernie Banks, also probably one of the best players on the Big Red Machine in the 1970s, Johnny Bench.
Yeah.
But the list goes on and on. George Brett, Rod Carew, Ty Cobb, Bob Feller, Sandy Koufax. And oh, by the way, it was on January the 19th, 1972, Sandy Koufax was elected into the Hall of Fame, and he was the youngest player to ever be elected into the Hall of Fame at 36 years old. And a lot of people may not know much about Sandy Koufax. I'm sure my friend Jim knows next to nothing. I know Alan knows quite a bit about Sandy Koufax, as well as myself. But in the short period of time that his star burned, and it did burn brightly, he was the best pitcher in baseball over a 4 or 5 year period. Nobody could hit him.
Unhittable.
At the time when he was forced to retire due to an elbow injury in his arm, he had thrown 4 no-hitters, which was the measuring stick of excellence for Major League pitchers.
Yeah.
Nobody else had done that at that time. That record since got broken by, I feel, one of the greatest pitchers in baseball history, Nolan Ryan. I watched him pitch many times, but that gets me to the greatest pitcher in baseball history, and it was on January 19th, 1937, that Cy Young was elected into the Hall of Fame along with Trish Speaker. And I do believe Honus Wagner, and if my memory serves me correctly, a certain Ty Cobb in 1936. So,
good class.
A real good class of athletes. Just wanted to give them some note. And then also on a sadder note, being that Ken Griffey Jr., whose roots were from Donora, Pennsylvania, his father was born in Donora, Pennsylvania, and as a matter of fact, on 1939, I saw a picture of the high school baseball team for Donora High School. Ken Griffey Jr.'s grandfather played on the same baseball team as Stan Musial.
Great minor league
And
player.
Stan Musial, unfortunately, on January the 19th, 2013, passed away at 96 years old. Stan Musial, one of the greatest players to ever come out of Western
Stand
Pennsylvania.
the man.
Bar none. Here's a guy that had 3,630 base hits in his major league career. He was a switch hitter. He was the epitome of
Perfect.
consistency.
Yeah.
He had 1,815 hits from the right side of the plate, 1,815 hits from the left side of the plate. That's unheard of. You're never going to see that ever happen again.
Let's
So,
hope not.
getting back to some other things here real quickly. The Pittsburgh Steelers, after their victory over the Cincinnati Bengals, had won 34 playoff games and they tied the Dallas Cowboys for the most playoff victories. Now, of the Steelers' 34 playoff
break it?
wins, 25 of those wins were shared by two quarterbacks. Terry Bradshaw had 14 playoff wins, Ben Roethlisberger now with 11, Cordell Stewart with 2, and Neil O'Donnell with 3. And that rounds out
Neil got more than Cordell?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Because Neil made it to the Super Bowl. Cordell didn't.
Cordell was at that Super
Neil
Bowl.
Neil
too.
O'Donnell waited until the Super Bowl to throw the game. Okay,
Cordell
he didn't want
was
to
at
do it
that
in a playoff
Jersey
run.
boys. The Jersey
So now,
boys.
just getting to one last thing here. Super Bowl's coming up in a few weeks, and also what's going to happen Super Bowl weekend is that the NFL Hall of Fame is going to announce the enshrinees for 2016.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And I want to kind of go over some of the people that are eligible. These are the finalists, and I'm going to.
Can I ask one question before you go to your
Sure.
football? I got a bit of trivia for you both. Do you
Okay.
guys know why Ken Griffey Jr. wears his hat backwards?
No.
No,
There's
I
a
do
little
not.
bit of trivia. His dad, in my opinion, who should be in the Hall of Fame as well, he always idolized his dad, and his dad's hat was too big for him, so he used to wear his dad's hats backwards, and that's where it all began. And before you go on, congratulations to Ken Griffey Jr., who's never in his life been better than Barry Bonds. Okay, thank you. You can continue.
Yeah, guess what he could say? I'm in the Hall of Fame.
You never will be.
Okay, so here's for the modern era, okay? And I don't know how any of you feel. Should a guy that kicks the ball through the uprights
No.
be considered for the Hall of Fame? Morton Anderson, the leading scorer in NFL history, played 22 years. He's up for election. Steve Atwater, safety for the Denver Broncos and the New York Jets. I don't think so.
Ask Christian Okoye. Should he
Don
be in?
Coryell, Air Coryell,
Oh,
coached the
yeah.
St. Louis Cardinals
Yeah.
from 73 to 77 and the San Diego Chargers from 78 to 86.
He got my vote.
Terrell Davis, who did
Loved his
rush for
son.
2,000 yards, but the unfortunate thing about Terrell Davis, I believe his career was too short to
Yeah,
be
he'll-
considered
I'll
for the
never put him
Hall
in.
of Fame.
Yeah.
Longevity is something that I think is something that's measured.
His kids
in
will
that.
take care of him.
Next, as a head coach, Tony Dungy, from the coach from Tampa Bay from 96 to 2001. And from Indianapolis from 2002 to 2008, and he
Got the
finally
black
won a
vote.
Super Bowl there. And Tony Dungy did play on the Steelers' last Super Bowl team of the 70s as a defensive back for Chuck Noll. He also became a secondary coach for Chuck Noll and learned to become a defensive coordinator at the hands of the great Chuck Noll.
Yes,
so
sir.
he's got a legacy that dates back to the black and gold.
Do you
so,
think he should be in?
you know,
He got the black vote.
see,
not working out real
here's the thing. You know, when I think of Hall of Fame coaches, you know,
What do you
I
mean?
think of people like Vince Lombardi. I think of Don Shula. I think of Chuck Noll, and I think of guys that have won, that have coached for a couple of decades. Now, will the criteria change? Because there's a lot of coaches that coached well for short periods of time, but did they warrant Hall of Fame credentials? That isn't for me to decide. That's up to somebody else.
don't
I
have
don't.
no
I
opinion?
don't know if he will make it this year, but I do wish him well. Now, two first-timers, former Steeler Alan Faneca, believe that he's got a chance to get elected in his first year of eligibility.
It's possible.
And Smoking Jim's favorite quarterback, Brett Favre.
Yes!
I think he's an automatic
He should be
shoo-in.
the only one going in.
And because
He might.
when I talk about the next one, it's Jim's favorite linebacker, other than Ray Lewis, and that's Kevin Green.
Yes, sir.
Kevin Green is up for election again, and I do believe he belongs there. Another man I believe belongs in the Hall of Fame, Marvin Harrison. Why are we waiting to
Yeah,
put him
good
in?
point.
This guy had a Hall of Fame career, period. End of sentence.
Yes, sir.
There is no question. Edgerrin James, he's another running back that I don't know
Hall of
if
Fame,
he
in my
stood
book.
the test of time.
My book.
John Lynch, free
see it.
safety from the Denver
Where's the book?
Broncos and the
My
Tampa
favorite.
Bay Bucks.
My favorite.
Another first timer here, Terrell Owens, and I don't know if
Oh,
he's going
right,
to get
T.O.
the popular
He's not.
vote because he there weren't a lot of people
He's
that were
not.
big T.O. fans. I think he pissed off every sports writer in every city in the NFL. So,
And he still offered to come back now.
no,
He said he could play this
wrapping
year.
up the modern era, Orlando Pace, who I feel will probably go in. Kurt Warner, quarterback, is up for it. And I'll tell you the only thing that I think might be in Kurt Warner's favor is that he took 3 teams to the Super Bowl. Okay, he won once.
3?
He took the Rams twice, and he took the
Okay.
Cardinals
Okay,
once.
I thought you meant 3
and
different
you know,
teams.
and I mean, you know, you got to give him his props. I mean, he, for a short period of time, his star did burn bright. But once again, does he have the longevity of a career to
I don't
make him
think
Hall
so.
of Fame worthy? Yeah, that's a now in the senior portion, somebody that I feel belongs in the Hall of Fame, and our friend J.T. Smith, who was here and sat in Jim's chair for 1 week, was his backup quarterback was Ken Stabler, the Snake. He's up for what
Hall
is
of
it?
Famer?
Yeah, as a Hall of Famer. So is Dick Stanfield, who's a guard from the Detroit Lions in the 1950s, and in the Washington Redskins, and then finally as contributors. And I do believe that this gentleman does belong in the Hall of Fame, Eddie DeBartolo Jr., owner of the San Francisco 49ers from 1977 to 2000. He was the man that was smart enough to hire Bill Walsh and to let him run the team. Created the 49ers dynasty.
And he built the Century 3 Mall.
Yeah, well, that's
It was one of the biggest in the time.
yeah, it's tough. But you know, these are the people that are eligible for the Hall. We've got our opinions. We'll see who gets in.
Very good, Chip. That was the extended version from 2 weeks not talking trivia.
Yep.
So
Well, sometimes
you covered it and more.
Yeah, well.
Even got Smoking Jim adding in there.
Yeah.
It didn't all make sense.
if you
didn't
saw-
all make sense. but-
If you saw, I was.
I'd like to see
I
your
was throwing
kitchen
away
table.
pieces. Yeah, I was throwing away pieces of paper before we went on air. Like this is going, this is going. Boom, this is getting axed.
I'm glad Smoking Jim doesn't sneeze much. That would have blown everything away.
Oh man, I have to get a glue stick.
Yeah. We'll just get those sticky notes.
I'll be like Jack Tatum. I'll stick them all over me. Oh, who was that?
Lester Hayes.
Lester Hayes. Yeah, Lester Hayes with the sticker.
As we reminisce. On location, we'll be back at Atria's on location there, 7:30 to 8:30. See you on the 25th. Great show. Don't worry about the weather. Just come on out. It's warm inside. Great food specials, Talking Machine, Big Mouth Burger. They may even have a special. They're working on it. Something that'll honor Smoking Jim and his eating abilities.
Yes.
They saw how you can eat. They said you ate the burger before you left, even though it was to go. I said, no, those rumors are not true.
If I may make it be as bold as to make a suggestion, how about a smoked brisket sandwich?
I've
for
never heard
Smoking
of brisket. but-
Here's I already had to consult with Smoking Jim. How's chicken? He goes, I love any kind of chicken. So it could be something with that, or maybe
right.
fries, because you know how he's a fry monster.
You put it in the smoker and you let it smoke.
He never ate it.
It
So
just falls apart in your mouth.
we'll have to find out, but we're lining up the guests to come on out there, and we might have a few that'll surprise you, and maybe some returning guests and some new ones, of course, like we did last time. It was great. I got the final tally of people there. 60 people showed up. So thanks everybody
Great
for
number.
coming out in the cold. We appreciate it. Thanks to all the guests. Taylor Alderdice, you know Dice Sports, you got the good karma. I mean, I only thought you'd win by 20. I think Pittsburgh Sportsline Good Karma doubled that.
Yes,
and
sir.
now, once you're shaking the brother handshake with Smoking Jim Frazier, I mean, I've got
Made
hit in
me
the
feel
chin as they
good.
go across doing that. So you can't lose now. There's no doubt. It's already in the cards for Dice Sports. So thanks, everybody. We appreciate it. We got to at least close the season out with the Steelers on what your opinions are, maybe a couple things on what you think they need. Like, I know they need a secondary, but then the cap determines a lot of things. We're going to lose some linemen, too. And, you know, my thoughts, Ramon Foster's not one of my favorites, but he at least holds on there pretty good and keeps people out. Now, Beacham's going to be gone. I know that. I don't think they'll keep him. And then you got cap issues on things. You know, maybe we can't sign some of the guys that we think we need still.
Well, you know, and the Steelers, you know, I think they far exceeded, without a question, they far exceeded my expectations this year.
Oh.
watching
Everybody.
the performance of the defense in the preseason, and I made a bold prediction and saying that I expected them to go 6-10.
Yeah.
Considering their schedule now, considering all the injuries that the Steelers had, and to come out of the season 10-6, win a wild card game, make it to the divisional round of the playoffs, and unfortunately lost the heartbreaker. I think they did far better than I could have anticipated, and I do believe that come the final game of the year that the defense was better than it was at the beginning of the season. Doesn't mean that I'm real comfortable with the defense that we finished the season with going into next year, because this is the place that needs to work. We've got the offense pretty well stacked going into next year, and Sammy Coates came out of nowhere and actually looked like he might be able to play ball. I mean,
Well, didn't they draft him because they needed somebody like, who's that, Bryant? It was
Well,
a similar pick.
Yeah.
So he didn't get to play. They've been saying he's tearing it up. They quoted him on TV, or Roethlisberger saying he was just outstanding in practice.
well, and maybe because he came out of college and his head was this big, okay, and he got into the pros and he realized that, wait a minute, if I don't get my head out of my hind end, I may not be around very long. And he finds out that, talent gets you to the pros. It's hard work that keeps you there. So
Antonio Brown.
I
example.
hope that's the case. But here's the thing that what is going to be left for the Steelers to draft with the 25th pick? I could lean over here to my NFL draft expert here, and what will be available come the 25th pick, and what do you think Steelers should go for?
Well, first of all, just to retrack a little bit, very proud of Martavius Bryant performing well in Colorado, where his favorite pastime is legalized. But I think next year the Pittsburgh Steelers #1 is going to get rid of Wheaton and let Wheaton go. His contract's up, and I think that, like you guys said, Sammy Coates stepped right into that position. I hate playing the what-if game, but what if the Pittsburgh
How
Steelers
do you
get rid
play
of
it?
Ramon Foster and put Beecham in at left guard, where I think he best fits, but I don't know if the Pittsburgh Steelers have the foresight to do that. Congratulations to some of the coaches. Munchak, outstanding job. Butler will have another year under his belt. But I look at it this way, Chip, that I'm not sure what the Steelers want to do. I'm sure they'll take the best available athlete, but Pittsburgh Steelers get another first-round draft choice, in my opinion, next season, because Sanquez Goldson comes back. I think Brandon Boykin was a pleasant surprise. I think that the Pittsburgh coaching staff did not want to give up a fourth-round pick, and I think they purposely did not play Boykin, which probably cost them a game or two because of
we
playing
needed a
time.
game.
They needed a game. There's some games there on the table that they could have maybe have had home field advantage throughout.
Wow.
But I think next year, Chip, and I think you'll agree, if the Pittsburgh Steelers can stay healthy, they can get a moderate schedule next year. I think it's Super Bowl or bust. I think this is an opportunity now. They blew a Super Bowl, maybe 2 Super Bowls, by getting rid of Bruce Arians. A couple of those 8-8 teams were good enough to go to the Super Bowl because you had defense then. They had to weed out and pretty much put in a whole brand new defense. I still think the Pittsburgh Steelers are overvaluing which is the most important position on the team, which is right outside linebacker. I would do everything in my power to do it, but they love Jarvis Jones for some reason. They're going to pick up his option in the spring, which will guarantee him close to $9 million in signing bonus money. So that they're not going to draft an outside linebacker when you got that kind of money tied up in the Jarvis Jones.
I want to tell you what, I think the best linebacker.
And the biggest mistake on the team, not to cut you off, the biggest mistake that the Steelers made in the offseason, I thought Troy Polamalu had a year or two left in him, but the biggest mistake in evaluation of talent was Shamarko Thomas. This is a guy that not only
Isn't
can
he
learn.
a nice special teams player?
He not only
that's it?
Not
yeah,
even. Not even.
not
a
only
nice-
No, I'm
can,
kidding. I'm
he's a
being
tough
sarcastic.
kid, can't learn the defense, can't play, undersized guy, and he makes all kind of mistakes in the special team area, like you
See,
said.
and I'm glad you mentioned Senquez Golston, because that was the one thing that I was going to say, is that we've got a second-round pick. Didn't play a down of football this year, that's had the year to learn the defense. And, hopefully next year he can show why he was drafted so high. But I wouldn't stop there in the secondary. Not by any stretch. I think one of the pleasant surprises, but I think he still needs a lot of work, was Villanueva. Here's a guy that's 6'9", 6'10", but if you've noticed how many times Ben got crushed because he
needs to work.
he hasn't
technique.
He hasn't been working it, but who better to coach him than Mike Munchak, a Hall of Famer? But the guy's just got he's massive. He's like a mountain.
I've interviewed him. Last year I interviewed him at Police Palace.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I did.
That.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I just called him out.
Good looking guy.
Yeah, he
is.
but and I think the better thing that this year may have taught this Steeler team is that next year I think they're going to play with more of a sense of urgency than they did this year,
I hope
because
so.
I think they realized walking out of Denver that they blew a very serious opportunity to battle for his championship.
Quit crying, Steeler fan.
No, not
Here,
quite.
Smoking Jim, enough of this. I got a question for you, because you were so down on Butler, and I would have liked to see LeBeau stay also. But I have to give him a little bit of credit, because he was sending guys from all over the place. They dumbed down the defense. The defensive playbook isn't as much as it was before. So, I like that, because I thought LeBeau should have done that, because the talent that he doesn't have, look what he used here as talent, that you were critical of all the players on the defense, even when they were doing well. What do you think, Butler? What's up with Butler?
Well, what I love about Butler is the same thing I love about Green Bay, which is Capers is running the Dick LeBeau offense. Butler is running the Dick LeBeau defense. Over in Cincinnati,
so they're
Marvin Lewis
proteges.
is running the Dick LeBeau defense. So, they did a great job. But what you have to look at as defensive coordinators,
that's why I'm asking.
Chip mentions this all the time, and that's why it's hurting Landry Jones, because once a team gets a little bit of film on you, now they'll see the tendencies, because in 60 years, Butler's never been a defensive coordinator, so nobody had film on him.
60 years?
Yeah, in 60 years. He's never
Is that
been.
all he is?
Yeah, so
I want to
so they'll get some film on him, but I'm sure that Butler will be the first one to tell you that he would prefer to get pressure from his front seven, and rather than having to send exotic blitzes, because that means that the Jarvis Jones are not getting there.
And I want to tell you something. The two things that this defense did this year that it hadn't done the last 2 years with LeBeau, is they were getting turnovers, they were getting pressure on the quarterback, they were sacking the quarterback. I'll be honest with you. The one kid who impressed me when he did play is Ryan Shazier. The guy's a football
Superstar.
player.
Yeah.
And I hope that he's got a couple of brain cells left when he leaves the game. He's got to quit leading with his head.
Oh, I love that. Does he hit with that crowd? And he gets away with it. Yeah.
Now I want to tell you what.
That's old school.
This is what really impressed me on Sunday night. I thought the best linebacker on the field for the Steelers was old 92, James Harrison.
Yeah.
He played like the old James Harrison.
Did he run through that running back to get that sack?
I'll tell you what.
He knocked him on his back.
He's got a contract for one more year, and he's up in the air as to whether. And I can tell you this: the James Harrison that played for the Steelers this year, I'd take him back as a backup to any of those young kids. Right now the Steelers have depth at linebacker, which they didn't have 2 years ago.
Yeah, right. Harrison puts you in the mind of perfect, don't he?
No. No, he doesn't. I don't know how you can say that.
2 Pro Bowlers.
No. I don't think so.
Perfect will never win NFL Player of the Year.
Well, let me see.
Defensive player.
He put out Le'Veon Bell. He put out Big Ben, and he put out Antonio Brown.
And he's been fined more than any other player in the last 3 years. He's got and he's
luckily,
got fined so much that the next one is going to warrant probably an 8-game suspension instead of 3.
Well, the interesting thing, his buddy
Al
Goodell,
Sharpton will put a stop to that.
Your buddy Goodell would normally take somebody out of the game. They'd be suspended for a season maybe, because you can't just ignore all that.
Good
So it's
point.
going to happen. It's only time because he can't help himself.
But there's a lot of questions that need to be answered, and a lot of people that their options are up. But I think the Steelers are we've got a lot to look forward to with next year's football team. It's important everybody stay healthy, and I hope Antonio Brown has enough sense to stay out of that circus on January 30th called the Pro Bowl.
He's going. Brother's going. He plays every year.
Yeah.
I would
Yeah, maybe
not
he can
play.
straddle a goalpost.
I would not
Yeah,
play,
I
not
would
with that concussion. I mean, get your head screwed on straight, win a world championship next year,
Oh, you're giving good advice, but it won't be taken.
Well,
It'll be rare.
you know.
They just like him to hit. They're young. They're invincible.
You
right
know what?
now.
Jim was talking about Martavius Bryant. Right here, I have a little snippet here. Martavius Bryant led all players with a personal single-game playoff games best in receptions, receiving, and yards from scrimmage with 194. He set a Steelers postseason record for yards from scrimmage in a game with 194 and joined Lynn Swann with 161 in January of 1976. Versus Dallas, and John Stallworth with 156 December 30th, 1978 versus Denver. So that's pretty
rarefied
elite
air.
That's pretty elite company that he was.
He was playing like he was on some synthetic. Hey, listen.
How do you know?
This is what you all you need to know between Butler and Dick LeBeau since you wanted to compare.
Okay.
One, Dick LeBeau never would have gave up 380 yards to Johnny Manziel, but number two, what you see differently is there wasn't one Pro Bowl player on the defense. Dick LeBeau's always had Pro Bowl players.
Okay, but now can I burst your little bubble here about Dick LeBeau? Because Marvin Lewis is running Dick LeBeau's defense, right? It's pretty successful. And Keith Butler is running Dick LeBeau's defense. He's pretty successful. Who else is- Capers is running Dick LeBeau's defense. Well, guess what Dick LeBeau did this year? Ran a defense in Tennessee. He got the head coach fired, and they got the first pick in the draft. So maybe he doesn't know how to run his own defense.
I don't know. I think you need the horses. I always tell people, just like
I didn't
students.
think it was the horses.
smoking-
I thought it was the system.
No, it's never that. It's like students. You can have the greatest teacher in the world. Now look at Smoking Jim. Believes in. He had the greatest teachers in Gateway, and it just didn't work out. But that happens. You got to have some talent. I always believe that. I've never said it's the system. It's all the media-driven stuff. This guy's that.
Okay.
Look at the players.
But I mean,
Think about it.
And we have been, and my
But let me
dad-
just say one thing before you go on about Tennessee. Dick
might have
LeBeau
changed.
didn't get him fired. Mike Mularkey backstabbed his own
Yes.
buddy Wisenhunt. I told y'all that when he got the
You
job,
did.
and now he got the head coaching position,
did.
which is a shame.
and
Just like the guy backstabbed Lovie Smith in
And-
Tampa Bay, the offensive coordinator.
So
Good
this
move.
gentleman right here, and he works with the Steelers on the draft every year, and he has never given them a grade higher than a D- in the last 5 years. Somehow, and I don't know how, the Steelers team seems to be fairly stacked with talent going into 2016. So I don't know where that came from, but I'm just saying.
Well, here's how it looks. Here's how I base it, Chip. Our opinions are on the teams, of course, because we all could do better. Somebody else could come in. LeBeau had a pretty good track record here, whether you like him
Oh,
or
he
not, or
did.
think
No,
he got
they-
old.
and,
And my thing is,
having some
I'll
fun with
respect what he did because even Troy couldn't start his first year.
No, I'm having some fun.
No,
with
I,
my
understand.
friend
I
Jim.
understand. I'm not
You know,
upset
we did-
about it. My thing is, when he left, I just thought he should have sat out a year.
Because for the next
Because the teams are already set. What are you doing? Going anywhere? You know, and he head coached Cincinnati. You know better.
for the next 9 months, he's going to be jerking my chain up by the Pirates. So
Well,
I'm just catching.
if you're not taking, Chip, for anybody that watch the show, if you're not taking 3 pounds of flesh during the Steelers season, then you're not going to last 162 games of the Pirates. So,
One thing I do have, and that is thick skin. So it's all good.
and that's a good thing.
Pirates always win when they got an AJ on the team.
Isn't Babe Ruth looking over the Pirates? That's the classic. The classic statement, Chip, is we're at the Park House taking photos. Babe Ruth's on the wall. You may have seen it. And he made the comment that I spit a whole cup of green tea out because I knocked it over. When he goes, Babe Ruth looking over the Pirates. The only time he looked over him is he hit the only ball ever left Forbes Field.
But
Back
in
then.
Jim's defense, the last 3 home runs of Babe Ruth's illustrious career, 711, 712, and 713 were hit at Forbes Field.
Made him famous. That
But
made
he
him
didn't
famous.
know that. So you can't even say that. He doesn't know that. He only knows Babe Ruth because I drove a guy crazy that was on here about Babe Ruth. And you know that.
I thought because he liked the candy bar.
I don't know. He thought people were saying Beirut, so I don't know. It was in Lebanon. That's part of what happened. But that's another story.
So
for
now that
another day.
we've kind of wrapped
Steelers
up
are
the
done.
Steelers season. How about the
Congrats.
Pittsburgh Penguins?
But before you say that, I
He
threw
just
you a
said it.
softball with AJ. Pirates signed to AJ, right? A pitcher named AJ.
Oh yeah, they did. Yes, they did.
Yeah, see?
How'd you see that?
Another reclamation product from
All right,
Seattle
there you
Mariners.
go.
How did you see that? That's
AJ,
awesome. This year,
AJ's going to lead the Pirates.
Smoking Jim, you're on fire this year.
So
Yes.
now we take a look at what's going on with the Penguins. And I know a couple of weeks ago, I said, we need to give them the month of December to see what's going on. And I was telling you, I have no enthusiasm. I have no faith in the fact
Right.
that Penguins. I mean, they win 1, they lose 2. They.
Well, look at the game before the
they
one
win
they got
1,
blown out.
they
blew
lose in
out.
overtime two in a row. And the team now, and what I have been saying for quite some time, apparently the rest of the United States and Canada feels the same way. Sidney Crosby's no longer the elite player that everybody claims that he is. He didn't even get selected for the All-Star team this
I
year.
don't believe that.
It's real.
They're prejudiced against guys that get concussed and injured and all that stuff.
you
That's
know,
what
I
it
mean,
is.
He's, you look at
Can't
the
be
league
concussed
leaders.
all
He's
the
nowhere,
Lips is too
he's
big.
nowhere close. And I
Got a
tell you
little
right now, the
mustache.
Penguins are in a pretty sticky wicket because they're short on defensemen. They're bringing up Derek Pouliot now, who's been underachieved ever since he was drafted very highly. Played 34 games last year, and he's finally got called up to the big team for the first time this year. And he's been pouting in the minors because he feels that he should have been up here all along. Well,
With his talent, he should be. You
well,
have to
with your
produce.
talent, but you have to, you have to put in the work.
Yeah,
and,
sort of produce.
But
Production helps.
but the Penguins, they're not in the playoff picture right now. There's still a couple of months left in the regular season. As well as Marc-Andre Fleury's playing, he's still an average goaltender. He's not even in the top 10 goaltenders in the league. I might maybe be the top 15, top 16. And, the team is just, it looks like they're just going through the motions. There's no enthusiasm, no passion there.
Well, again, some of it's the talent. They had to get rid of people because, as you mentioned, all of us, well, not Smoking Jim, but the cap. When you put all your money in 4 baskets, basically, there's not much other flexibility. And again, I go by the horses. Smoking Jim will tell you I'm a horseman there. So
Yes, sir.
if you don't have them, you can't go too far. You can get them to do a little better at times, just like they won the other game 5-0. Looked like Stanley Cup material.
I mean, they lost
Then-
last night,
Then they lose last night.
5-2.
How do you have a 2-2 game and get blown out, as what I call it? It wasn't a rough game. They got blown out.
No,
then.
they got blown out in the third period, and that's the period of the game that you need to win more than
That's the
anything else.
choking time. They got apples on the bench. They just eat them and can't finish.
And I don't know what the solution to their problem is. I mean, do you blow it up and start from scratch? They're stuck in such a position with all these big contracts and no trade provisions in the contract. So they're stuck with players whose salaries they can't move, which limits their options.
Yeah, well, I'm still a little bit hopeful because they do show a couple games here and there. With the new coach, I think he's on to something, and I like he yells a lot. He yells at them, and maybe they need that change of pace because he's not going to be here that long either. It happens. When your stars aren't producing, you can't stay.
As long as Sid wants him here.
Well, he's only going to carry so much of that power. Sid's a changed man. He still has some talent, but he has to do some other moves.
When
Like,
they're selling the team.
they're not. Nobody will buy it.
They're not. For what they're asking.
Quit stirring us up for like $800 million.
They were trying to get 750 because what they were trying to do is they were trying to package the team with the developmental rights for the Lower Hill District where the Civic Arena used to
really?
be. But what happened was they had a big tenant for the building that they were going to put where the arena used to be. U.S. Steel was going to put their national headquarters in there. Well, they backed out of the deal, so now they have a developmental project without a big fundraiser in it. So it's,
It makes a difference. In U.S. Steel, like the steel industry, I know you're a little naive on stuff, Smoking Jim, but steel is down and out. They're going broke. So they're laying off people and everything. U.S. Steel's not what they used to be.
I thought maybe U.S. Steel wandered up and looked around further up the hill.
No,
and
they like
decided
that.
to pull out.
They like that. Shop and Save's up there now, so they're good about that. Okay, you don't have to worry. I've been in those neighborhoods. He talks about it. We'll move forward on that. Smoking Jim, you notice any more Bucko talk? Any other Buckos they picked
No,
up?
just AJ.
Okay.
No,
There's some
31
other moves they made. But
31 days and started spring training.
What a
And,
waste of time.
and I tell you what, I look forward to spring training every year. And for the
Grapefruit.
20 years that the Pirates consistently lost and made bad decisions and overpaid for washed up players, every year spring comes and it's like everything's
spring's
reborn,
eternal.
and everything's reborn. And I just I love the coming of spring and the baseball season. It's one of my favorite times of the year, and I'm really looking
How are you
forward to
going
it
to feel
this year.
without Neil Walker there?
Well,
Okay.
You know what, Jim? Players are like the equipment. They're like the jock straps. They're the baseballs. They're the bats. They get replaced year in and year out.
you better quit sitting next
You
to
don't get
Smoking
the-
Jim.
the-
It's starting to come over to you.
You don't get all emotional about the players. It's the team. It's the game, and they'll be successful
They're
this
going to
year.
lose some season ticket holders because of that.
Really, my season tickets are already paid for, Haas,
See,
in full.
Smoking Jim, you don't get the right information on that.
He's a local
The
kid.
season ticket sales
didn't even know who
are
he
higher
was.
now than they've ever been in the history of the franchise. Just for your information.
Smoking Jim, 3 winning seasons in a row, and they were one and done, and they're still popular. Shocking.
It's actually my 5th year as a season ticket holder. I got ahead of the curve before all the
You must have saw
bandwagon fans decided. I did see something.
I like going up and seeing the Washington Wild things. I like that.
When did
I
you
like
do that?
When
When did you do that?
I know the general manager of the team. He gave me tickets to Pete Rose night last year.
I remember.
Yeah,
you heard about it. See, he doesn't
I
remember.
had
a
10
thing.
free passes to go see Pete Rose.
You didn't think I'd
Then-
stay for the whole game?
No,
I
no.
know you wouldn't have.
He wouldn't have got there
Would you have
early.
paid $90 to talk to Pete Rose?
Yeah, more than that.
No, he wouldn't.
You haven't paid $90 for anything as long as I've known you.
For not a team sports. Well, he does have the season tickets to all the sports at Gateway, and he travels well, only with certain people who will remain nameless.
And you know what they said? You pay $90, you can meet Pete, but you're not allowed to mention Rule 21, Paragraph D.
Here's what Smoking Jim would say. Who do you like in the game? Whatever game of sport is playing, he'd ask him because he bets on it. He was hilarious during the playoffs.
Jim said,
You can make me money.
hey, Pete, I got a horse up at the Meadows.
He bet on horses.
I got some inside info for you. What's his name, Old Glue?
Yeah. Hey, Pete Rose bet horses too. Most baseball players do. No doubt about it. Well, that was our little entertainment. Hey, I forgot to say, we hit a new high, 5,092 likes. Appreciate everybody liking our show. Thanks for watching us on Comcast 7, Verizon 32 everywhere in the area, Nemacolin, the Cranberry, Wexford. We appreciate City of Pittsburgh. It's been a great start to the year. Thanks to Bethel Park for letting us run all over the country here and promote Bethel Park. We appreciate it. We set that record of over 500 shows as producers. There'll be more stuff coming out about Bethel Park and BPTV. If you haven't liked capital B, capital P, capital T, capital V on Facebook, do that now. And I got to tell you guys that due to the city council and the Bethel Park Council and the mayor, they needed us to move our show from 7 o'clock to 6 o'clock next week. So I told them we would do it and try to do a live show at 6. Tune in to us next week at 6 p.m. and stay Joey strong.